Awareness, the final frontier. These are the explorations of Jonathan Robinson and Brian Tom O'Connor. Their continuing mission, to discover fresh new paths to the mystery within, to seek out new joys and new methods of awakening, to boldly go into the heart of expanded consciousness. This is Awareness Explorers.
Okay, friends, welcome back to Awareness Explorers. This is Jonathan Robinson, and I'm with my co-host,
Brian Tom O'Connor.
We got that down, Brian. We have an interesting discussion today and also exploration of new tools. It's really about awareness and decisions. What's the relationship between our true nature and making good, wise decisions that might actually work in our life? And it brings up a lot of different topics. Before we go into that, I do want to mention that we do have a Facebook page that is Awareness Explorers, and we have thousands of likes. So somebody's enjoying what we're doing. So thank you for that. And feel free to go to Facebook and type in Awareness Explorers. You'll see that we have various posts. We have various links to our podcasts, snide remarks, fun reviews, whatever. It's all there on Facebook. And it's nice to be able to use these social media things, which tend to be more superficial, to actually connect with like-minded people and put up good stuff that nurtures our soul. So feel free to do that. But let's get into the topic at hand, which is, a main thing that we do as human beings is we're always making decisions. And in some ways, the quality of your life is the quality of the decisions you make. So it's interesting to explore, how does having a deeper awareness, a awakening of awareness, affect our decisions? And before I blab and rant about that, I want to hear some of your thoughts about this, and then I'll play devil's advocate, tell you how wrong you are, and tell you what's actually right. But why don't we begin with the first things that this triggers in you, Brian?
Okay. Well, the thing about decisions is, of course, they're important in our lives and in making our lives run the way we want them to. But of course, we know that happiness is not necessarily attached to our lives running the way we want them to. Happiness is our actual true nature. It's already there, apart from our life circumstances or our life situation. But that said, there are ways that awareness can play into our daily decision making. For example, let's just say, and you don't have to believe this, just take it as a theory for now, that awareness isn't my awareness or your awareness, it's universal awareness. The thing that's looking out through my eyes is the same as looking out through your eyes. If that's the case, then each of our connection to awareness is a connection to everyone else and to the universe. And the more we're in touch with that, the more we're vibrating in sympathy. We're sort of vibrating in harmony with the universe, and that actually helps our decision-making and our intuition.
That's a really far-out idea. So what you're saying is that awareness, or that vibration, is like a portal to the connection to the universe, and the more you're in harmony with the universe, the more your decisions will be in harmony with the universe.
Yeah, that's basically the idea.
I think that's really interesting. It's not something that's talked about a lot, but I think that there's something to that. And, we get closer and farther away from that vibration depending on our day. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you're like incredibly aware and you're totally in the flow, and everything you decide, everything you say seems to be supported by the universe. And it's just like, wow, I didn't know this universe existed before. This is the way it should be. And then, of course, I have had the opposite many times, where every single thing hits a roadblock and doesn't work. And it kind of goes into the law of attraction that when you might be in the vibration closer to awareness and peace, that good things often happen. And when you're out of harmony, everything is a big pain in the butt.
Yes, and I've experienced both. Those
Yes.
days where everything seems to be flowing and days where everything seems to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But the remarkable thing about it is that on those days where everything is a pain in the butt, that's happening in awareness too.
Yeah.
And as soon as you notice it, it becomes less painful.
Yeah. And to know that awareness is always possible, you don't have to wait for things to get back to flowing in your life, which might take, days, months, weeks, or years. You can focus on changing your vibration and get back to a place of peace, and know that there might be some lag time before that manifests in your life, but it in a way doesn't matter because you're already at peace. You don't have to wait for everything to go okay in your life for you to feel at peace. And that's the great joy and advantage of knowing how to tap into pure awareness.
Absolutely. It's about whether you feel at peace. And the tricky thing is, though, that let's say you're doing this in order to make things happen well in your life. It doesn't really work quite as well as when you're doing it just to be the background of awareness and allowing anything in your life to be the way it is. It's a paradox. The more you try to do it in order to fix something in your life, the less well it works to bring you to that place of allowing and that place of peace and that place of natural happiness.
Yeah, that's a real bummer. It pisses me off because, you're trying to get somewhere, and it kind of seems to be this thing in the universe where your motivation is actually tested. So the more you're trying to use awareness or the law of attraction or any of this stuff to change your life, the more the universe seems to know, oh yeah, he's not pure, not coming from a pure motivation, so the results will be rather crappy. Whereas if you really do let go of attachment and you really are focused on the vibration and experience of being in awareness now for no other reason than that's where happiness lies, then good things do tend to happen.
It's funny that way. Yep.
Yeah. It's another sign that God has a sense of humor. The other thing is, I used to have a teacher that had a term called, is this decision a 39-40? And what that was, he said, on a scale of 1 to 100, some decisions are really important, like, whether to have kids. That's a pretty important decision. It's going to affect you. But most of our decisions are whether to have ketchup or mayonnaise on our hamburger. And, in a certain way, big friggin' deal. It doesn't really make that much difference. And yet we worry about these things. But if you have the idea that really the biggest decision we make in our life is how much time, energy to put into our true nature. Because once you have peace, what happens in your outer life makes a lot less difference. And I like that point of view that when I'm struggling over a decision, I think, well, this is a 39-40 decision. It really isn't going to have a major impact on my life. The only thing that really has a major impact on my life is my state of consciousness. And that's a moment-to-moment decision.
Yes, it is a moment-to-moment decision. And at any moment, it's available and it never fails. That pure background of our true nature, that awareness, it's always there. And even when we're feeling really crummy or very stressed out by decisions we have to make, it's there.
Thank God for that, because it's pretty easy to get stressed out about the decisions, and that doesn't help make good decisions. So if I notice I am being stressed out about decisions, I'll use one of our many awareness practices, and that puts it all in perspective and gives me a sense of peace in that moment anyways. And that, I think, actually leads to better decisions.
Yeah.
Something I've also been interested in exploring is the relationship between this thing we call intuition and decisions. I've explored this pretty thoroughly, and it's actually, I wrote a book about it and have made a bunch of money by following my intuition. But I'm wondering what your hit on the term intuition is and whether you've used it to make important decisions.
I certainly do use it to make important decisions, but it's usually a little bit after the fact of the mind coming in. In other words, let's say I have a really important decision and I really don't know what it is. I will take some time and weigh the pros and cons, and I might list the pros and cons. And that's part of the analytical mind, and it's really useful. But it usually doesn't lead to the actual decision being made. The next step is, okay, let's put it aside for a little bit and forget about it, and then see how I feel in a little bit. And then what happens is all of a sudden it becomes clear what the decision should be. That's what I call intuition. So it's sort of like intuition favors the prepared.
I agree. Do you think that there's a relationship between intuition and awareness?
I think there is, and I think it really is very similar to what I talked about before, which is that we are really connected to the universe. And when we are noticing our true nature, which is pure awareness, which is happiness and peace itself, then we're vibrating in harmony with the universe. And therefore, intuition can happen almost automatically or gracefully or smoothly or without effort.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I haven't really thought about it, but it does make sense that, say, the greater your connection with pure awareness, that it's likely that you will also have greater access to your intuition, if for no other reason that your mind is quieter. And a quiet mind seems to be, to some extent, the entry ticket to being able to access deeper intuition.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And the converse is that the noisy mind, meaning the mind that's trying to figure out what to fix and what's wrong with the way things are right now and the way things should be and why this isn't happening the way I want to and what I have to do and what other people have to do and how they have to change to get what I want. When the mind is busy with that, it's totally involved in the past, which doesn't exist, with the future, which hasn't happened yet and doesn't exist, and forgetting about the present. And intuition likes the present.
Yeah. And there's maybe even different types of intuition, like our body seems to have an intuition. They've now shown that there's as many certain types of cells in your gut as in your brain, and that they actually are trying to speak to us, and we're generally too busy to listen. But the term listening to your gut actually seems to, that's another type of awareness. Are you aware of what your gut is saying? Because it's often screaming at you. And
that's right.
Maybe that's not intuition. That's basic body awareness.
Well, gut feeling is a great expression. And I also have I've heard a lot of research say that there is almost a second brain in your belly because there's so many neurotransmitters or something like that. Forgive me, I am not a scientist and I always use the wrong terminology.
I am learning, which is partly becoming aware of my body and the sensations inside. So if I have a decision, about a person or a thing that I'm doing, I might bring up that decision in mind, feel what's in my gut. What is my gut saying? And that's both using awareness, and that's also, I think, the beginning of intuition. I think intuition can get farther out in that it is like a wormhole into the center of what the universe wants. And I've had some very strange experiences along these lines. The most dramatic was many years ago, I was thinking of going to India to visit a certain guru. I was trying to decide, it's never convenient to go to India. And so I said to my intuition, please give me some kind of sign whether or not I should go. And I needed to decide by a week from now on a Wednesday. And come Wednesday, I still hadn't decided. I hadn't gotten a clear sign. So to turn off my rational mind, I actually turned on the TV, which was something I rarely watched at that time. And I'm turning channels, and the first thing I see is a preacher show. I'm not big on those shows, but as I watched the show for a minute just to see what the guy has to say, the first thing he says is, "You need to go to India."
Huh.
Now, I thought that was interesting. I said, well, that's an interesting coincidence. So I'm now riveted by wondering what the context was for his statement. And the next thing the preacher said was, I'm getting a sense that someone named Jonathan especially needs to go to India.
No.
Now, there is the possibility that not being on drugs, that I hallucinated the whole thing. I wasn't on drugs, but this is what I clearly heard. And either he said that or I hallucinated that. Either way, that was a pretty strong message. And I'm pretty sure he said that because I was very sober in that moment and listening very carefully. So that's the type of thing. And I've heard stories like this from other people, especially when it comes to dealing with powerful gurus, that there is a deeper thing going on in the universe. And as you open to awareness, you're also opening to some of these deeper, possibly magical energies, or something's going on. And I've had 2 or 3 experiences like this, which have rocked me. Really, like, I was very skeptical of stuff like this. So when I actually had them, it definitely impacted me. For one of my books called Life's Big Questions, I had a question in there, which was, what's the most miraculous thing you've ever experienced? And I just started casually asking friends, family, this question. And I was amazed that almost maybe 80% of people that I asked, and these weren't necessarily spiritually oriented people, they would have a story like that. Now, there was only like one story like that, but yeah, I was surprised at the amount of times that people would say that listening to their intuition led to some decision that changed their life.
Yeah.
And, for the people listening, if I asked you, what is the most miraculous thing that you've ever experienced that made no sense? I bet that 80% or more of our listeners would have a story that when we heard it, we would say, no way, like that. So what do you think of this? I'm thinking you're a skeptic, but I don't know.
Well, you're absolutely right. I'm a skeptic, but I think there's a word that we don't really have in English for a skeptic who's open-minded.
Agnostic.
Agnostic, but that doesn't have the right feel to it. But yes, I'm a skeptic and agnostic about these kind of intuitions and these kind of miraculous things. And the only reason, it's not because I don't believe that they happen to other people. It's that I haven't noticed them happening to me. I've had situations where I felt I had a really strong sign from the universe that something was going to happen or I should make a certain decision, and then only to realize later that it was absolutely not true. Or dreams that said that I'm going to meet with some person and it's going to be great, and I meet with that person and we don't get along at all. So I think it's marvelous, and I love hearing things like that. But I don't actually have firsthand experience in that area. The only thing
Yeah.
I have firsthand experience in is the miracle of the fact that life can be enjoyed.
Which we don't want to discount that one because it doesn't get better than that. And that's always available.
Yeah, it's always available. But this other stuff is really fun to hear about too. I like it.
It's fun to hear, but I like your point in that you can get kind of intoxicated with the miracle stuff. And for me, really, that can be like getting addicted to a drug.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what we're really here to do, those stories can give us a forevision of what's possible. And a drug can give us a forevision of what's possible. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to, are those stories there to entertain you or inspire you to do your work?
Yeah.
And the work, we all know, we all can agree that spending time trying to expand awareness or be in our true nature, whatever you want to call it, is a good thing. And it may lead to all kinds of powers. It may lead to all kinds of intuitive insights. And it may just lead to your supreme peace and happiness. And wouldn't that be a bummer?
Yeah, what a drag. Supreme peace and happiness. Boring.
Yeah, yeah. I'll actually be good with that. But, you know, I think it is useful to explore intuition and awareness and their relationships to making good decisions, because if you're making a lot of bad decisions in your life, you won't have the time and energy to devote to your spiritual practice. You'll just be in chaos. And I see that with some people, that they make really stupid decisions a lot. They're not using any aspect of their awareness to say, well, does this make sense? They're not checking in with their intuition. They're just kind of making impulsive decisions based on habit, based on need, and it makes chaos in their life, and it doesn't create the space for more present time awareness to be there.
That's right. And in that case, it's much more useful to focus on awareness, to focus on your true nature, than to be busy figuring everything out. The figuring out stuff is useful only up to a point. But after that, I do believe you have to go by what's true for you, what feels true for you specifically, what feels right to you, what feels harmonious to you. Because we don't live in a vacuum separate from the rest of the world. We interact with it all the time. And decision making is about how we interact with the world. And we can be lofty and talk about pure awareness as this thing somewhere in the ether that's apart from our lived experience. But the fact is, it isn't apart from our lived experience. Our lived experience happens in it. It's part of it. It's made of it. It is part of everything. So there isn't life and then awareness. There's life in awareness.
Mm-hmm. And to the extent that you get that, you're going to probably make better, more harmonious decisions just because you're coming from a deeper place, a less neurotic place.
Yes.
And perhaps you can even call it a more intuitive place.
Right.
And that's why, almost every day I do a little intuition decision-making exercise, which I want to guide people in, because, we all have decisions we need to make with people or business or health or where we put our time. And it's good to have a very simple exercise that can be useful in increasing the odds that that decision will create harmony rather than lots of new problems. So I'm going to guide people in a 4 or 5 minute guided meditation. And if you like this, you can use it whenever you want to make decisions. I use it for everything from trivial to important. And I think it's kept me out of trouble a lot of the time. Should I do this? No. Okay. I just avoided a 6 months of lots of difficulty. Thank you. So make yourself comfortable. If you can, close your eyes if you're not driving and such. And I want you to think of some decision that you need to make in your life. It could be some simple thing for today, pursuing some business thing, or it might be in relationship to a person or an issue. But try to just choose one for now. Allow yourself to welcome all the feelings that come along as you think about this issue, decision, or person. Notice what your body feels like, if there's any tension there and where it might be. And as you think the question, what would be the harmonious thing to do in this decision? And repeating that question internally like a mantra. What would be the wisest, most harmonious thing to do in this situation? Just allow whatever thoughts, feelings, sensations are there. And I'll have a minute of silence as you contemplate that question and just see what arises. If you prefer, you can also ask, what would be the highest good in this particular situation? What feels right? Notice if any thoughts or feelings feel true in a deep way, like they resonate, like, yeah, that feels right. You can ask, is there anything else for me to know about this decision or situation? And listen for anything that feels right or true in that regard. Just take note of anything that stands out that isn't just a thought, but more of a feeling of resonance with the deepest part of yourself. And you can even say a little prayer inside if things aren't clear yet. And that is to ask that things do become clear in your body, in your awareness, in your intuition, over the most harmonious or best decision for the highest good, that you ask that does become clear, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time for intuition to trickle into our awareness. And if it's not clear yet, allow that prayer to be there in your heart. And feel free at any time during your day to just take a moment, become present, close your eyes and ask, what would be best to know or do in this situation? Accessing that deeper awareness, deeper knowingness. What would be important to know or do in this situation for the highest good? Feel free to ask that throughout your day and see what happens as you follow that deeper guidance. And when you're ready, take as much time as you need. Take a couple of slow, deep breaths. Come back to feeling the sensations of your seat. And very, very slowly begin to open your eyes. Well, welcome back, Brian. How was that for you?
Thank you. That was great. And something occurred to me during it. You were talking about what was the most harmonious action you could take. And I realized that the most harmonious is often the least resistant. And we actually can make better decisions when we're less resistant to the way things actually are. And we're most effective to change things when we first accept things exactly as they are. It's another paradox. Once we accept things as they are, it's actually easier to make changes that are helpful to bring about more harmony.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that way, awareness and intuition and decision making are in another way connected. Because if you're not in denial, if you're not dismissing, if you're not in resistance, then you see more clearly, and the more clearly you see, the more clearly you can make a good decision.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to practice this tool. I haven't focused it for a while. The just taking a couple minutes out, asking that question, what do I need to know or do for the highest good in this situation, this decision? I think that's an interesting way to be in life. It allows you to access your deeper self, some aspect of ourself that is in more resonance and harmony with the universe. And, sometimes it might be, just take a couple of slow, deep breaths, or stop thinking about that thing you were worrying about that won't do any good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm really happy to have another tool for our awareness toolkit.
Number 73 tool. Soon when we hit 1,000, we'll reevaluate. But yeah, I think some tools will resonate, some won't. Some will fit you for one time of your life, some will fit you at another time. But it's also good to focus on different tools at different times, because if you just focus on the same thing, it can kind of wear out. It's no longer new, and we kind of like new. New is new aliveness, and so by listening to Awareness Explorers and always experimenting with new tools, our hope is that it will reinvigorate your practice.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, well, that's what we'll do until our next Awareness Explorer podcast. In the effort of sounding a little bit new, I won't repeat the whole thing about please tell all your friends, family, and the entire world about this. I'll just say that I won't say that this time. Sound good?
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Till next time, keep exploring.
Keep exploring. Thank you for listening to Awareness Explorers. To learn more, you can check out our website at awarenessexplorers.com. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or your favorite podcast app. And we'd love it if you would post a review. And please share our link on Facebook and with family and friends, because knowing yourself as awareness is the greatest gift you can give yourself or someone you love.